Ever wondered why the area of Washington DC is smaller today than when it was originally created? Well, let's delve into the past, back to the late 18th century. The United States, a budding nation, needed a capital, a place where decisions of national importance could be made. But where should it be? The Residence Act of 1790 was the game changer. This piece of legislation, signed by President George Washington, led to the creation of a federal district, a capital that would belong to the nation, not to any particular state. It was decided that the district would be located along the Potomac River, a strategic location chosen for its accessibility and significance. The area was a perfect square of 100 square miles, carved out of land ceded by the states of Maryland and Virginia. It was a bold plan, a grand vision of a city that would stand as a symbol of unity, independence, and democracy. The design of the district was entrusted to Pierre-Charles L'Enfant, a French-born American architect. L'Enfant's vision was to create a city that embodied the ideals of the Enlightenment, a city with wide boulevards, public squares, and impressive government buildings. The district was named in honor of George Washington, the first president of the United States, and a key figure in the country's early history. But the story doesn't end here. Despite its grand beginnings, the district's size would not remain the same. The capital that started off as a 100 square mile square would eventually shrink. The city of Alexandria, once a part of the district, would be returned to Virginia. The reasons for this change are complex and multifaceted, tied up in the politics and economics of the time. So the district as we know it today started off larger, but what led to its reduction in size? Stay tuned as we untangle the intricate story behind the contraction of Washington, D.C. How did the vibrant city of Alexandria become a part of this tale? As we delve deeper into this historical narrative, we find ourselves facing a confluence of economic and political dilemmas. In the early 19th century, Alexandria was a bustling city with a thriving economy largely driven by the trade of tobacco, wheat, and yes, human lives. Slavery was an integral part of its economic fabric, an uncomfortable truth that has left an indelible mark on its history. However, as time passed, the city's prosperity began to wane. Alexandria found herself overshadowed by her more prosperous neighbors, particularly Georgetown, which was rapidly emerging as a dominant port. This decline in economic fortunes was a bitter pill to swallow for the residents of Alexandria, but the blow was softened by the promise of a new canal that would connect the city's harbor to the Western Territories. However, this beacon of hope was dimmed when the funding for the canal was shifted towards other projects. This economic blow was the first domino to fall, setting off a chain reaction of events. At the same time, the political winds were shifting. The abolitionist movement was gaining momentum, and there was a growing concern that the federal government, seated in Washington, D.C., would outlaw slavery. This fear was not unfounded, as the District of Columbia was indeed under the jurisdiction of the federal government, which was increasingly leaning towards abolition. For Alexandria, a city whose economy was still tethered to the institution of slavery, this was a chilling prospect. The city's leaders and residents were faced with a difficult decision: stay in the District of Columbia and risk economic ruin, or sever ties and return to the relative safety of slaveholding Virginia. In the end, the choice was clear. Alexandria did not want to be a pawn in a political game, nor did it want to bear the brunt of economic decline. So Alexandria chose to leave DC and return to Virginia. But how did this happen? Join us as we unravel this fascinating chapter in the next scene. Retrocession, an uncommon word with significant implications for DC. Now, let's take a step back to the year of 1846, a time of change, a time of decisions. This was the year of the Act of Retrocession. The Act of Retrocession, for those unfamiliar, was the process by which the city of Alexandria was returned to the Commonwealth of Virginia. It was a move that reduced the area of Washington, D.C. by a third. This wasn't a decision made lightly, nor was it a decision made overnight. It was a request, a plea from the city of Alexandria itself. The people of Alexandria had grown discontented with their place in the district. They felt overlooked, underrepresented, and they yearned for the rights and liberties that their Virginian counterparts enjoyed. So they petitioned. They petitioned to the Congress, the governing body of the land. They sought to be returned to their former state, to Virginia. This wasn't a move without precedence. In fact, it was a move that harked back to the days of the Founding Fathers. See, when Washington DC was first created, it was designed to be a neutral ground, a place free from the influence of any one state. But the people of Alexandria didn't feel neutral. They felt detached, isolated. And so, they sought change. And change they got. Congress heard their plea, considered their request, and in the summer of 1846, they approved it. The Act of Retrocession was signed into law by President James K. Polk. With the stroke of his pen, Polk altered the shape of the district forever. Alexandria was returned to Virginia, and Washington, D.C. was reduced in size. The city that was once a perfect 10-mile square was now a lopsided diamond. The city had lost a chunk of its territory, a part of its identity. With the stroke of a pen, D.C. lost a chunk of its territory, but was this move legal? As we'll see, this question would go on to spark a controversy that lasts till this day. Even after decades, the legality of Alexandria's retrocession remains a topic of debate. The crux of the controversy lies in the very heart of our Constitution. The U.S. Constitution, the bulwark of our democracy, does not provide a clear and specific mechanism for a part of the federal district to be returned to a state. This has led to a whirlwind of questions, with scholars and legal experts engaged in a tug-of-war over the constitutionality of the retrocession. The debate is underpinned by Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which provides for the creation of a federal district to serve as the nation's capital. It stipulates that this district is to be governed by Congress, and is silent on whether a part of this district can be transferred back to a state. Those who question the legality of the retrocession point to this silence as evidence of its unconstitutionality. They argue that the Constitution, as the supreme law of the land, must explicitly permit such an action for it to be legal. They contend that since the Constitution does not mention retrocession, it is therefore unconstitutional. On the other hand, proponents of the retrocession's legality argue that just because the Constitution doesn't explicitly allow something, doesn't mean it prohibits it. They suggest that the Constitution leaves room for interpretation and flexibility, and that the retrocession of Alexandria was a pragmatic move, in line with the spirit of the Constitution. In the midst of this debate, it's crucial to remember that the retrocession was approved by Congress and signed into law by President James K. Polk. Since then, despite the ongoing controversy, no court has ever ruled the Act of Retrocession to be unconstitutional. Despite the controversy, the retrocession stands, and DC, as we know it today, remains smaller than its original size. The tale of Alexandria's retrocession illustrates the complexities of our Constitution, the elasticity of its interpretation, and its enduring power to shape the contours of our nation. The retrocession of Alexandria has lasting implications, even today. The ripples of this historical event continue to shape Washington, D.C.'s political landscape and urban planning strategies. Let's first consider the issue of representation. As it stands, Washington, D.C. is not a state, and therefore its residents do not have voting representation in Congress. This is a paradox, given that the capital of the United States is home to more than 700,000 people who pay federal taxes, serve in the military, and contribute to the nation's economy. The disenfranchisement of these residents can be traced back to the retrocession of Alexandria, which reduced DC's size and population, thereby undermining its bid for statehood. The retrocession also has implications for urban planning. The loss of Alexandria meant that Washington, D.C. could not expand its geographical boundaries to accommodate growth. Today, D.C. is one of the most densely populated areas in the U.S., with an urban fabric that is both vibrant and congested. This population density presents unique challenges for urban planners, who must find creative ways to manage growth, transportation, and infrastructure within the confines of a smaller city. Moreover, the retrocession continues to spark debates about DC's statehood. Advocates argue that statehood would rectify the historical injustice of disenfranchisement, while opponents worry about the implications for federal governance. These debates underscore the enduring impact of the retrocession and the complexities of DC's political status. In conclusion, the retrocession of Alexandria continues to reverberate through Washington, D.C.'s political representation and urban planning. It's a testament to how decisions made centuries ago can have profound and lasting effects on the present day. So the past continues to shape the present, and the story of DC's size remains a fascinating tale of politics, power, and territory.